Hi, welcome to the Revolver Fan First podcast. I'm your host, Christina Rowett, and joining me today is Sean Dowdell of Grey Daze. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me on today.
Well, thank you. So I thought it'd be interesting just with the new record, The Phoenix, which is some reimagined tunes from your back catalogue and some new things, that we would talk a bit, we talk about someone's history as a fan, but I thought it'd also be interesting to talk about your history as a fan alongside Chester, because you are honoring him on this album, which is interesting. So, but we always start with the same question, which is, who was the first artist you put on a pedestal?
Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah,
they spoke to you?
4 years old. It was my first album my parents ever bought me, was Alvin and the Chipmunks. Thought it was great.
It spoke to you.
So beyond that, I guess it would have been Kiss, the band Kiss. Back in the 70s, I was really a huge Kiss fan.
Yeah, well, they touched a lot of lives and started a lot of bands, in fact.
Yeah. Those guys' fingerprints on a lot of stuff, and had the opportunity to meet them a couple times, and really nice guys.
Yeah, awesome. So who were you as a teenager musically? Like, you started your band, your first album is 94. I mean, that's a pretty fun time to grow up as a teenager.
Yeah, I would hope that most, no matter what era you are as a teenager, you're having a good time, right?
Yeah.
But for me, it's very memorable. I loved it, and so for me, I grew up kind of at the very end of the glam rock stuff that was kind of going out of style in the early 90s, was kind of leaving, and then you had this grunge scene that was so brand new and was really driving my generation. And you had Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and Alice in Chains and Jane's Addiction and Red Hot Chili Peppers and Candlebox and Live. I mean, all those bands were bands that influenced me. But then aside from that, we had bands like Depeche Mode and The Cure, which were heavily influencing the way we wrote lyrical content and vocal melodies. So those are the bands that really pushed me in music. So
you're a secret goth.
Yeah, it was for a long time. Sisters of Mercy, Front 242. I mean, there's a lot of those bands that I was really into, Chem Lab. I mean, I kind of go down a list, but I kind of have two sides. That whole goth side, Morrissey, all that stuff was really that emotional love kind of thing with music, and then the dark side of music, that deep, moody sadness thing that was really prevalent in grunge is another side of where I come from, perspective wise. Yeah, and so much of Grey Daze has
a really, I guess, this balance, and I think they're really good places to live between, which is sorrow and rage. I think music should exist between sorrow and rage. And, you found Chester, who, defined in many ways a generation in terms of communicating sorrow and rage, essentially.
Yeah, he really perfected that kind of paradox, right? He could kind of live in both worlds, which some people are either really good at the screaming, some people are really good at the soft, and he can do both almost simultaneously, it sounds like, in a lot of stuff. And he really developed that during the Grey Daze era. So it was fun to watch, it was fun to be a part of.
Because was he the first person you wrote songs with, or did you you had a band slightly before that, right?
No, so he and I were in our first bands together, but I did write music with other guys. I wouldn't call them, bands per se, but he was the first person I wrote together with, lyrically and melody wise. And what a great first experience for me, because he literally had no ego. And as we would do it, he would take my input into consideration, because he was the singer. I wasn't the singer. And I would say, well, what about doing it this way? And he would actually listen and try it. And most of the time, if I had a good idea, he would do it, but he would take it and make it that much better because of his talent and his creativity.
And that's a beautiful thing when you get to kind of be greater than the sum of the parts sort of thing.
He always had such an open mind and willingness to work with other creatives that's one of the things that kind of just followed him from, the moment you and I just touched on was him at age 16, 17. But he was still the same guy at age 40. He was wanting to play and create with so many other people. He wasn't just locked in with Linkin Park. He wanted to do Grey Daze. He did Dead by Sunrise. He did Stone Temple Pilots. He did Kings of Chaos. He did Camp Freddy. He did Bucket of Weenies. There's so many things that he was into. he just loved creating music. If you were in a room with 50 people at a party and there was a guitar hidden under a bed, he would find it within 5 minutes and be playing it. He was that guy his whole life.
Well, what was the chemistry like when you first met? Like what kind of struck you about, and what did he bring out in you? And what did you know that this would be a really special relationship from the outset?
So there's two parts of that very first meeting. He was introduced to us through a friend named Chris Hewlett. He said, this kid can sound just like Eddie Vedder. We should try him out. He walked in. I thought he was a nerd. He just did not look. I was like, oh, Chris, why did you bring this guy? And then he walked up to the microphone. This all happened within 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Walked up to the microphone and he sang and my jaw hit the ground and I felt like an asshole. I was just like, wow. He's really good. And there was this energy there. And I was like, when can you start? And from that moment, like we had to go talk to his dad, get permission for him to play. And then we started our first band together and it was off to the races. Yeah.
And you made this amazing like canon of music. Like, so a lot of what you're referencing on the Phoenix is tunes off your first album.
Yeah, I think it's about 50-50, but it's close. Yeah, it's there's some off of Wake Me and then some off of No Sun Today. Yes.
Yeah. What was your headspace writing that album?
Originally or the new versions?
A bit. I guess both. And how different was it?
So writing the first album we ever did back in the 90s wasn't like what we would think of writing an album today. We kind of wrote songs over a period of a couple of years and then we went into the studio and recorded them. We really didn't have a producer. We just kind of went in and recorded what we had already written in real time. Doing it this way, we took all the music and stripped it away from Chester and was just left with Chester's vocals. Then we would work on the arrangements of where Chester's vocals fit. And then we decided to write the music around his vocals and just see what emotion he was trying to capture. What was the intention of his lyrics? What was the mood that he was trying to grab? And then we wrote around that. So it was kind of a backwards from one to the other, completely backwards. And then the second time around, it was really organic and we were writing it as an entire record, even though each song was individual. But the first time around, it was like we wrote one song 2 months prior, one song, a year prior to the recording. And then we just had a collection of songs good enough to make a record with, so to speak.
Yeah, well, that's a beautiful thing. What how do you write as a drummer? Like how far deep do you go as a drummer and a songwriter?
I go pretty deep because I play piano too. I understand scales and I can sing. So I write a lot. Sometimes I'll just write lyrics, then sometimes I'll write a vocal melody. As a drummer, I'm more I will take the position as a drummer after some of the songs have some composition, and then I'll fill the attitude of the song with the drums. But I'm really active in writing vocals and lyrics and guitar parts and all those types of things.
What that's really interesting. You start from a place of emotion and the drums have the attitude. That's kind of an interesting balance. Like that's, they're very important things,
I think drums can offer power and attitude to a song. They can't add emotion. They can't, you can't get, you can get power, but you can't get rage. You can get softness, but you can't get sadness. Drums have a very specific purpose in a song, at least the way I think of it. Maybe somebody can figure out how to pull sadness off of a drum, but for me, it's a little bit more linear than that, and I have to use the tools within the scope to get the desired effect. So I can get sadness from a violin, I can get sadness from a piano, I can get sadness from a vocal or even guitar. I really can't get sadness from a bass, but I can get groove and I can get punch and I can get energy. So there's different things of each instrument that'll give us to whatever part of that song we're looking for.
Yeah, I guess like the rhythm section propels the emotion.
It can drive, right? It drives and gives some texture and context to the emotions you're trying to portray.
Yeah. What do you think the dominant emotions are that you are putting forward? And did it change between making them initially and making them now?
Yeah, and I think the two new albums that we have, Amends and The Phoenix, are very different in what we're trying to accomplish. I think Amends was much more melancholy, much sadder, gave you a much more of an emotional roller coaster. There were a lot of tears when people were listening to it. And I think the Phoenix is quite different in that it's going to feel like a celebration. It's going to feel very hopeful. You're going to feel a lot of pride when you listen to it. And instead of crying, I think you're going to want to raise your fist and scream, and not in terror, but in power and rage and fun and in an anthem sort of sense.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to get from the Phoenix. And that to me is very different records. And it happened very organically when we were writing. We just say, this is going to be a celebration of the Chester record. It's like halfway through the record, we started realizing that it had a certain feel, had a certain dynamic. There was a lot of textures and character that were symbiotic throughout the songs.
Yeah.
And this album feels like we wrote it as an album. I think Amends was very similar in that sense, but two very different emotions that are very transparent in each.
Yeah. Do you feel like you noticed his ability to translate emotion very early?
Oh God,
yeah.
He was good at it so young. He just had this gift with being able to make you believe that he believed what he was singing. He really he wore his heart on his sleeve, and he believed every single thing that when he sang, he just did. And he made you believe as a listener. He had that gift. Very few singers have it, but he did have it.
What do you have any like vivid memories of those early days where you like laughed until you cried?
Of course.
Do you have fun? Yeah. Any really vivid moments that kind of stick in your mind? Because I like the joy side of it, you know?
Yeah, so there was lots of moments where, you know, we would do a lot of vacations together and go down to Mexico's, and Phoenix were only 3.5 hours from the beach, and we would drive down and we would get really drunk and, you know, high or whatever. And there's nights where we would wake up and our face would hurt. But one of the more recent times that comes to mind that just had, as soon as you said laughing till your face hurts, Chester, myself, good friend Ryan Shuck, who was in Dead by Sunrise with Chester, and Julian Kay, we went on a trip to Indiana together, and I think we literally laughed for 72 hours straight. It was the fun, and every time Ryan and I talk now, and even when Chester was alive, we'd say that was literally the funnest time I've ever had in my life, and all we did was sit around and laugh and talk shit to each other for 3 straight days. It was incredible. And our friend Cheese as well was on that trip.
I feel like the people, I just kind of had this vision of you guys doing that. I don't know what that is, but I think sometimes the darkest people have the most joy in them as well, because you get that tonal difference. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a fun guy, and he had a great sense of humor. We were always messing with each other. He lived a couple blocks from me when he was back living in Arizona for quite some time, and we would buy like giant statues of Sasquatches and put them on each other's front lawn. And he would come and put, you know, statues of cockroaches in my lawn. And so all of our neighbors thought we were crazy or just really weird people. And we just had a great sense of humor. We're always messing with each other. So yeah, some really fond memories for sure.
Yeah, you guys had a long relationship. What was the thing? What were kind of the big projects and stuff you're involved with over the last time? Like what yeah, because I'd love to know more about what you've been doing. Yeah. I mean, obviously these records.
So with Chester, or just in my own
both, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we, you know, Chester and I formed our first band in 93. So 92 actually. We formed our first band in 92. I opened up a company called Club Tattoo in 1995 with Mace, our bass player. Chester helped us open the first store. Of course, Grey Daze broke up in 98. I went on to a band called Waterface. They had a record deal with EMI. Chester went on to Linkin Park. Of course, everyone knows that history. In 2002, we reconciled our relationship after the band broke up and decided to do initial Grey Daze reunion. That ended up falling through due to some recording restrictions he had. Then he became my wife and I's business partner in 2003 in Club Tattoo, and we opened up our third studio with him. We ended up growing the company to a multi-million-dollar luxury tattoo and piercing company. We have studios in Las Vegas and in Arizona, and expanding globally. During that time that Chester was our partner up until when he passed, we did this really great collaborations with other brands. We did a shoe line with Etnies. We did some playing cards with Bicycle. We did hair clipper collaboration with Oster. We did boldface backpacks. We open up shops inside casinos in Las Vegas inside Planet Hollywood and Venetian and the Link.
Yeah.
And we started our own clothing line together called V-Cell that did really well globally. We did that for 3 years. And then, we did a couple side projects called Bucket of Weenies, and we did these big, huge anniversary parties where we would bring thousands of people to Arizona, and he and I would get on stage with our friends, with Ryan and Cheese and all these other people, and just throw these big events. And that's kind of what was the culmination of getting Grey Daze back together. We started talking about throwing another one of those events for Club Tattoo, another anniversary party. And he said, I've been thinking about that. And on the next one, I want to put Grey Daze back together. I think we should put the band back together. And I said, all right, I'm in. So that's really all these other things kind of led us back to what started with, right?
Totally.
So, we just had a good time. We did a lot of stuff outside of music. We would vacation and play basketball, and we were just friends. We were way more friends than band members. So
how do you look back on that moment in 98 now with hindsight, like ending the band? Oh,
so that, I wrote a book as well.
Yeah.
So I've written 2 books, and Chester wrote the foreword in my first book called Tattooed Millionaire. And I talk about it in there where, Chester's was married, his first marriage, and I was getting married, and everybody had, we had our own egos and our own perspective as to what should be important. And we had just signed this production deal with Warner Brothers, and we were going into the studio in 4 days, but there was a lot of tension. Mace was really deep, falling off the cliff into drugs. Bobby was kind of distant and upset with Mace. And then Chester was newly married, and we were getting upset because there's some volatility with the marriage. And it was just a lot of inner, turmoil. And then we had a big blowout after a show at a place called the Big Fish Pub. And it was between Mace and Chester screaming at each other. And I got involved, and we started screaming at each other. And it escalated to a point where, I was like, well, everyone was like, fuck you. And I actually said, well, I'll just, smack the shit out of you or something. And then the next day we broke up. We're like, none of us want to work together anymore. And I regretted that. I actually apologized to him. I think the next week, or even within a week or two, apologized to him for saying that. But it was just beyond repair at that point. We needed a part. We needed to do our own thing. And I was really proud when he went on to Linkin Park and did that, and was cheering him along the whole way. So, regardless of us having the falling out. But I mean, that falling out was over such stupid things. We both laughed about it when we reconciled. It's like we picked up right where we left off, best of friends again. Yes. I was the best man at his first wedding, and very, very close to him throughout his life. But yeah, that's a great question. How did I feel after the band broke up? At the time, I think I felt relief. And then as time went on, I was very upset with myself and my own role, and trying to hold myself accountable, especially when I feel like I've not done the right thing. And all of us had our parts to play, without a doubt. But I definitely felt guilty for a long time over that.
Well, it's a multi-way marriage. There's a lot of things that got to stay right for it to stay right. Like that's the nature of it. Yeah. And it's like you have to understand that the band is bigger than every one person in the band. And he was never an ego person, but I definitely had an ego. Mace definitely had an ego. Bobby had an ego. So, I don't think any of us realized, and Chester was still culpable in it as well. But I think our parts were that we were not serving the bigger picture for the right reasons. Yeah. Well, it's interesting, like him going on, like Linkin Park's debut was the best-selling record of the decade, debut record of the decade, which is insane. Like, I mean, that must have been hard on some level, not being together with him and having basically being born together. Or no.
No. I mean, because I felt like first of all, let's just be real honest. Without Grey Daze, Chester would not have been where he was at. Absolutely. And he wouldn't have been as a matured of an artist and been able to do what he did on that first Hybrid Theory album. That's just the facts. I don't care who disagrees with me. They're wrong. He had 8 or 9 years of molding himself and becoming what he was able to do on that record through all of our bands. So that's that's cold hard facts, and that's the truth of it. So I felt proud of that. And when he did for on some level for me, I felt validated. Like, yeah, I knew he was great. I knew that this person had this kind of talent. I was very happy for him. I'm not I'm an optimist by nature, and I always want to be the guy that's rooting for people around me, because I think you get better when you surround yourself with people. Even though he and I weren't in the band anymore, I still
Yes.
wanted to see him succeed.
Yeah.
And by the way, so at that time in 2000, or maybe it was 99, I owned my own recording studio and I was an influencer. So the labels would send me big packages of CDs every month, and they'd send me these forms to fill out, tell us what you think of this band, tell us what you think of that band. And one of the bands was Hybrid Theory. It was before they were named Linkin Park. It was a 5-song CD. I listened to it. I saw the name on there and I wrote the response on the form. This band is going to be huge. This singer is great. I think it's awesome. And so I still know that to myself, that before they even came what they were, I was rooting for him and telling people that I thought it was great. So I was stoked to see how big and how great they became. I was very proud of him.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting, like the evolution of the sound and also the world around you as well. Like the whole, I mean, I guess like new metal or whatever you want to call it. What was your take on that kind of music really taking hold? And obviously it was a big part of that. Like coming from a Depeche Mode, coming from a grunge place, how did you find all of that? Like what was your perspective on the wider world at that point?
I was never a big rap rock guy. But I don't, that being said, I think Mike is a very good producer and songwriter. So while I don't resonate so much with the hip hop, I also understand it in context of what they were trying to do. I thought it was great. And I think their second album is actually the best album they ever wrote, Meteora. Songs like Lying From You. Mike's doing stuff in there that I normally wouldn't resonate with. And I think it works phenomenal. So to that end, he was doing it in a way that fit within a context that wasn't like trying to mash two things together like some of the earlier rap rock bands did. They had like Body Count and stuff like that. It wasn't my thing, and no disrespect to those guys, but it just wasn't my thing. So when I heard what they were trying to do up the first, they were really, really good songwriters. So it made sense, and I got into it quite a bit. I thought it was great.
What
it's hard to deny Chester's emotional releases too. When you hear that, even if you don't like a certain part of another song, you hear one part of it that just will send chills up your spine no matter what. So I was stoked to hear what they were doing, and they were doing it differently. It wasn't like they were copying anybody else's formula.
Totally.
I gotta hand it to those guys. They worked their butts off, and they deserve every bit of success they've had.
It's so interesting, like the whole concept of like the emotion transcending it. I guess I mean, you've come into the Phoenix with these stripped back vocals. You're coming at it with an emotion. Obviously, the sound is different to how you interpreted it. What kind of skins did you want to shed from those songs, and what did you want to put there? Because it is different and it's quite big, and there's a lot of power in what you've done.
I think we wanted to go back to the roots of just being a rock forward band, the songs revolving around the singer. I think there was a lot of I think the early Grey Daze stuff was really good. I think it was really good. We didn't have a producer, right? So what we were doing was a 22-year-old kid trying to work his way through a song and doing the best he could. But as I've grown older, the guys, Mace has grown older, Kristen's grown older, we've become much better songwriters. So that's one of the reasons we wanted to rewrite this. We wanted to make it relevant in today's musical context. So I think if we were just to have re-recorded what we did in the 90s, it would sound like a dated song. Yeah, but we wanted to make it sound like it was recorded last week, and I think we did that. Yeah. Every time we play it for someone that doesn't understand what Grey Daze is or what we're doing, they're like, "When did he record this?" Because it feels like he recorded it right before he passed away, and that was what we were trying to do.
I have to say, there was a moment there for me where I was like, "How this can't be like from the archives like this." I'm like looking it up for ages. I'm like, no, this isn't like, this can't, like, they've got the same song names and stuff, but like this feels like now, like, did they secretly go into the studio before he passed? Did they like, what's going on? Like, yeah.
That's how good he was. Yeah. That's how good he was. Those performances stand the test of time and allowed us to do that to those songs. And we were working in the studio, by the way, before Chester passed. We were working with a producer named Sylvia Massey, working on the songs going back and forth. So this was already in process. We just didn't get to the finish line when he was alive. But that to say thank you for saying that, because that was one of the main goals, was making sure that these songs sounded fresh and new, and like we just recorded it as a band together last week. And I think we did that.
Yeah. What I mean, not to get dark, but like that's, you know, this record has, you know, a moment in time, and his passing was a moment in this time. Do you remember the last time you spoke to him?
Yeah, I spoke to him 2 days before he passed. He was in Sedona with his family. He had just gotten back from tour, so they drove to Sedona. He was going to fly back to LA to do a TV commercial for State Farm or something. And I might have that detail wrong, but he had to fly back to LA to do a TV commercial. Talinda and the kids were going to drive down from Sedona to Phoenix. Mm-hmm. We were all going to meet up. He was going to fly in from LA Saturday. Whoa. We were all going to have dinner. And then we started band rehearsals with the entire band the following day on Sunday.
Dude.
He didn't make it. So, I mean, Thursday night he passed away, and, you know.
Holy crap.
Well, we talked often. So,
yeah. But holy crap. What a time. I mean, the whole world went into grief. I mean, the whole music world went into grief. I mean, I can't even imagine what it was like. How was Talinda through this process?
I think just like all of us, through the Grey Daze process,
through the record and through that moment in time, but also through the making of this album, because it must have been incredibly confronting for her and stuff.
Okay, so I'll deal with one question.
Sorry, that was like 6 questions.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. You know, when Chester passed, I think, you know, she was borderline catatonic. I mean, how do you function when you lose your husband or wife? I mean, and you know, she did the best she could. I immediately drove out there to LA and spent the next, you know, 10 days with her, trying to help, you know, put things as right as I could, which is an impossible task. But she was numb. I think she was just numb for months. Fast forward to, you know, 8-9 months afterwards, she gave me her blessing to finish the music. I flew out to LA. I took her to lunch. I sat down. I said, hey, I want to finish the record. And at the time, I was just going to pay for it, and we were just going to put it out on our own. No delusions of record deals or any bullshit like that. It was just, we just wanted to finish it, you know? And she's like, I support you 100%. You're his best friend. You should do what he intended to do. Go ahead and finish it. I support it 100%. And then I call his mom. I call his dad. Everybody was on board. I talked to Samantha as well as ex-wife. Everybody was on board because they understood the intent was right. The intent was to finish this music. We all thought the music was good. And they all of them knew that Chester was really into making this happen. This wasn't me picking it up after he passed away. And some jerks on the internet just try to go, oh, you're just trying to milk his death. Like, you guys are idiots, man. You don't even understand that I've spent twice as much money on these records than I'm ever going to make. And I was quite wealthy before any of this. This is a waste of time financially. Yes. This is about honoring our friend and getting this music out to where people can actually hear and appreciate Chester in a different context.
Yeah. And and I mean, God, Amends was pretty beloved.
Thank you.
You know, it was got a pretty, like, was pretty well received, and, you know, and that must give you a lot of pride to have done this, to give a gift to the world, because people have this, you know, I think he got through a lot of people through a lot of hard times over his whole career. And I think that adds this other dimension to people's relationship with the music.
He did. He had that gift of making people feel okay with not being okay. He just had an amazing gift. And, you know, quite honestly, I get this question a lot too. It's like, well, you know, do you think Linkin Park should do this or that? I said, well, those guys have to decide for themselves what they want to do. But I'm a fan of Chester, period. So if they have other music, which I know they do, I would love for them to put that out. There's a whole record from Stone Temple Pilots with Chester on it that nobody's ever heard. That's amazing.
Whoa, dude.
Yeah,
that's mental.
Yeah. So there's some great stuff. And then, you know, there's unfinished Grey Daze songs. There's still 18 Grey Daze songs that are there. So I am all for the world hearing what Chester had to offer in its entirety. Okay. Yeah. That's just how I feel. Some people they're like, oh, you should just let it lie. Well, that's not me. And that's not how I feel. And
how finished were those 18 songs?
They're finished.
Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah,
whoa, dude. You got a bit of a treasure trove there, don't you?
Musically.
Yeah.
Sure. You know,
Like, you know,
I think there's some really great stuff that we're going to go back in and we're going to do another 5-song acoustic EP this year. So that'll happen.
yeah.
And then we'll see what happens. As we do
Yeah.
have more music. We'll see what happens.
With the whole mental health thing, was that stuff that you shared a battle with, or was it something you saw him kind of face on his own?
You know, there's different moments in his life that I saw different things.
Yeah.
You know, towards the end, I believe he stopped taking his medication for his antidepressants. My opinion on why all of this happened was, while he did battle, you know, depression, it wasn't a constant thing. And when he was taking his antidepressants, he was fine. But when he got off of them, I think it was a massive and steep decline mentally that was physiological due to the pills he was supposed to be taking. Okay. That's my opinion. I saw these things in action as they happen, but when he would hit those bottoms, it would come so fast and so swift that it would take him to the drolls, the depths that where maybe you and I can't really even relate.
Yeah.
And cause him to think certain things about himself. One of the most amazing things that I think is hard to understand is so many people loved Chester, but Chester didn't believe that he was worthy of that love. And that to me is such a foreign concept. It makes zero sense because I know what he meant, not only to me and his family and his friends, but to people who never knew him, were devastated by his loss. I saw what he actually meant to people, but he didn't believe it. And that's what depression can do to you, is it makes you feel like you're not worthy of even being here.
Yeah. I've got we've some of my friends who deal with mental health issues, we actually came up for a name for it. The voice that speaks to you when you're depressed, we call it strudel, because you shouldn't listen. You shouldn't listen to strudel because strudel's talking shit. Strudel's a dessert. You shouldn't even take anything on board. Like, just disregard that, because depression will tell you lies.
Strudel.
Depression will tell you lies. And I think it's such an I think self-love is the hardest thing in the most important relationship, and I think artists in particular can have a distorted view of it because they're so hard on themselves as well, and that their standards are so high. And you know, like, and I guess when you give so much, can you feel it back?
Yeah, I would view it a little differently, and that's an interesting perspective. I think that when they're giving, when they're performing, when they're writing, it's a normal thing for them. They're not going through this like weird seance or trance. They literally, that's just a part of them being expressed. And I think that expression, if you look into that a little bit deep, on a deeper level, you'll see that the pain that they have inside is what allows them to churn that into an expressionist vehicle, right? Music or painting or sculpting. That pain can really create some amazing beauty to the outside world, but it's very black and toxic and dark in the way it's being made.
Yes, on the other side of the process, I guess.
Yeah.
What?
So I think, you know, you can look at these beautiful lyrics and these beautiful emotional expressions, but it's really the pain and sadness that has kind of created those things sometimes.
Yeah. How did the lyrical process work? Like, who brought what to the table, and how did it work? And did that change?
So Chester and I wrote all the lyrics, and basically we each had a lyric book, and we would write songs. And when we come to practice, we would either start writing a song with a melody first, or if we had music, we would pull our lyric books out and say, hey, maybe this works, maybe this works. And he would take one of my songs, or I would take one of his songs, so we'd cross lines out and say, hey, try this or that. We were very, very connected in that way, and very open-minded. I had to be open-minded because I was a drummer and I was not the singer. So if he said, no, I want to sing it like this, and I was like, I really don't like that, but he wanted to do it that way, which was rare. But if I wanted him to do it different way, and he didn't, it would go that way. He would do it his way, and that, which was fine. But we rarely argued or butted heads. It was usually a really collaborative effort where I would say, here's song What's in the Eye, whatever, and he would go, okay, that chorus sucks. Let me write this out. And then he would write, don't go too fast, my friend, or you lose control. Like, oh, that's great. So, he would take whatever idea I had and make it 10 times better. And then, and vice, I don't know if that I would make his ideas 10 times better, but I would elaborate on them and maybe put some icing on the cake for some of the stuff that he did.
What do you want? I guess you've kind of already answered it in terms of like what you want people to feel from this record. You want it to be uplifting and you want it to be a joyous thing. Okay, random question. Which song do you wish you wrote?
Do I wish I wrote from another artist?
Yeah.
Ooh, man. Somewhere Only We Know by Keane.
Yeah, right.
That is a beautiful song.
Actually, we'll segue into one of our regular segments on this show, which is 5 songs that change your life.
Ooh, okay. Somewhere Only We Know by Keane for sure. I would say Strange Love by Depeche Mode.
Yeah.
I would say Fascination Street by The Cure. I would say
why Fascination Street?
Drumming Boris, and I think it's the drummer for Cure, Boris somebody. He was an influence on me early on for the way he did these little off snare timing things that I just thought were brilliant. And then of course you have Alice in Chains, Nutshell, I think is one of the greatest grunge songs ever written. That's that 4 or 5.
I should be able to
4 or 5 songs. So
I think you need
one more. Oh man, what am I thinking here? Smells Like Teen Spirit was definitely, actually I would say Alive by Pearl Jam had more impact on me. Alive by Pearl Jam.
It's interesting that Chester came in and said he sang like Eddie Vedder. Yeah.
Well,
that was the word on the street. That was the word on the street. Sorry, that was the word on the street. That wasn't.
As a 17-year-old or 19-year-old kid, I was, at the time, he sounded enough like Eddie Vedder that he could pull off singing a Pearl Jam song. I don't think he sounds anything like Eddie Vedder. But as a young, inexperienced musician, him trying to sing a Pearl Jam song, I was like, wow, he sounds just like Eddie. He didn't sound like Eddie Vedder. He sounded like Chester singing Eddie Vedder. But
it's true.
It was great. And I think that was more the attitude of what we were trying to say in those interviews.
Why did you change the name of the song to Be Your Man?
That was the original title.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, and same with Saturation, Strange Love. The original title, Chester wrote the lyrics to that one. It was called Strange Love as an homage to Depeche Mode. We changed it to Saturation because we didn't want to be biting off Depeche Mode song titles. And I put it back on there for this record because I know that was his original intent. And I thought it was a nice, not only homage to Depeche Mode, but a nice little tip of the cap to Chester going, this is what you really want in the beginning. We turned it back. And then Be Your Man, I wrote the lyrics mostly for that song. And that was the original title for that. And I think it makes a lot more sense instead of Here Nearby. I think we were trying to be kitschy with that song title back in the 90s. It's like, let's just go a little bit more straightforward and stick with the chorus title.
It's interesting, like the whole Depeche Mode thing, and I think it'd be good to talk about them briefly because not necessarily every Revolver viewer is 100% across what Depeche Mode was. And it's funny, funnily enough, was watching a live clip because I've got a friend who I do stuff with who is a huge Depeche Mode fan, and watching one of those live shows. And he's like, I want you to see what true beatific happiness is on stage. Like, reach out and touch me. You know that song? That like, reach out.
Yeah, touch faith, of course.
Yeah, touch faith. Yeah. So watching that, and it's like, honestly, it made me think of a Linkin Park show, the same level of return on that thing. And like, there's some definite shared things there. How did you get into Depeche Mode? I'm an ultra guy personally, but not everyone, everyone has their own record they're into. And yeah,
so mine's Violator.
Sick.
But Chester and I discovered Depeche Mode through an ex-girlfriend of mine that introduced me to Depeche Mode and in the early days. And then we got the Violator CD and we would listen to it on the way to and from practice just about every day for probably a good year. And Depeche Mode ended up becoming Chester and I's favorite band. And
huge.
We absolutely love. I mean, he would have loved. We tried to reach out to Dave Gahan to sing on a song, and just we couldn't get him to do it. But or maybe we just couldn't get a hold of him or whatever. But that would have been Chester's dream to sing a song with Dave Gahan. It really would. And Martin Gore, by the way. So they're not only great lyrically, they understand how to sing in metaphor, which is difficult to do in a way that people understand and can apply it to their own personal life experience. That's something Depeche Mode brings. Their integration of the digital world, of course, was, they were first, and not only first, but they were the best at it. They really figured out how to integrate these digital sounds that made them sound natural within the music. It didn't sound tinny or out of place. They really made the digital age of music coexist with great songwriting. So those guys were honestly geniuses in so many ways.
I guess like it's an earthiness. It's earthed, that kind of electronic sound, like it's kind of ground, like kind of thing. It's I don't think they get enough credit, man.
No, they don't.
I don't think they get enough credit at all. And I'm glad to hear, you guys shouted out, like, I think it's important, because that level of power is huge. The attitude and the emotion, if you don't have that, what else do you have?
You can hear Dave Gahan's influence on Chester on a lot of the Linkin Park stuff, especially their softer stuff. If you pay attention to the end of phrases, Chester will bend down his notes in the same way that Dave Gahan would do. And it's very, very, if you know Dave Gahan's singing style, you'll understand how it applies with Chester's approach with a lot of stuff. And not to say he's biting off what he did. He just influenced him, and I can hear it. And I love that, because I think those guys were brilliant.
Who do you think are the most underrated performers that had like an impact on you guys on Grey Daze? So that kind of, you were like,
Alice in Chains for sure. When Lane Staley was alive, those guys didn't do a lot of records. They were around for 12 years, but they were, I think, so wrapped up in their own turmoil with the drugs and stuff that, unfortunately, Lane's situation, those guys, and Jerry Cantrell and Sean Kenny, drummer. I know Mike Amends was the bass player as well.
They're still back. They're back.
Oh yeah. I've went and seen them a couple times in concert. I think
too.
They were the most underrated band of that era, and I really, everybody calls all this grunge. They were just a new version of rock for me, and they really were able to tap into some deep, dark stuff. So I think they had a huge influence on Grey Daze.
That darkness. I mean, it's cool. It's cool to see Jerry going out playing like this huge Alice in Chains set. Do you know Greg Puciato?
I'm sorry.
You know Greg Puciato from Dillinger Escape Plan, who is now kind of doing a lot of the Lane parts, which is quite interesting.
I thought it was William.
Duval with Alice in Chains, but on the Jerry Cantrell solo tour, they're doing a ton of Alice in Chains material, and they've got a guy from a metal, like a hardcore band called Greg Puciato, who's doing the a lot of the Lane parts, and it's really interesting. No pressure, bro. No pressure, bro. No pressure. Like, obviously, that would not be a terrifying tour at all. That'd be fun.
I think if you're a fan, which I'm sure he is, he probably doesn't feel an ounce of pressure. He probably feels like he's there sing. Those songs. When a song is so deeply ingrained in who you are as a musician, it is a pleasure to play that with those guys. It really is. And you are excited. You might be a little nervous, but you don't feel that pressure. No, I don't think you're feeling pressure. I think you're feeling, holy fuck, I get to do this. Let's go do it right now. That's my guess.
What, do you have any secret covers in the archives that you guys did?
Ooh, secret covers.
I bet you do. I bet you're harboring one. You're harboring one.
About that.
Yeah.
I can't. I think we do, but I can't think of.
You do. I knew it. You're holding it on your hat. Yeah.
I think we do, and I just can't think of what it is. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's always interesting. Like I love a reinterpretation, and you've got on your album, you know, on Phoenix. Yeah, that's cool.
Anything is what you're thinking of.
Yes, I am. I had a moment and it's
No,
fine.
that's all right. I was like, okay, she can't think of the words.
No, I really, yeah, thank you for noticing that. That was good. Dave Navarro, Jane's Addiction. What was the relationship with the band? Because obviously he's on Hold On and stuff.
Well, I guess you could say Dave's an okay guitar player.
Yeah, he's garbage. No, he's not. No, he's the opposite of garbage.
Yeah, him and Chester were friends, and they played in a band called Camp Freddy together.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And we reached out to Dave on the last album. He was actually slated to play on the last record. He had a scheduling conflict last minute, couldn't do anything about it, and we had to get it done. So he said, "Look, Sean, I love the project. I'd love to be involved in the next one if there's a chance." So I don't know, about a month before we went into Sunset Sound this time, I just reached out and said, "Hey, we're getting ready to record. Do you want to record a song with us? If not, no pressure, no worries. You just said that you wanted to." And before I could even really get through that, he responded. He's like, "Absolutely, I'm in. Send me the track." So we actually chose a track that you can hear Perry Farrell's influence on Chester in this specific song. It's called Holding You. And if you listen to it, you go, "Oh my God, okay, that's totally Perry Farrell."
Holding You, not Hold On. I'm really winning it.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm trying to retain a lot of information. Yeah,
that's okay. And I get the song names confused. All right. And he was just the most humble, easy to work with guy. He came in, he was just a sweetheart. I think there's a difference between good guitar players and great guitar players. Mm-hmm. Good guitar players will write a riff and it'll add some flavor to the song. Great guitar players will make you remember a riff or a guitar solo or a part as if it was a secondary vocal line. And the best way I can put that into context is that everybody I know that loves Sweet Child of Mine, when you get to the guitar solo, they'll try to vocalize it. They'll literally, in their head or verbally, they will try to vocalize Slash's guitar solo because the guitar solo is so memorable, it's become a secondary vocal melody.
Totally.
And Dave pulled that off on Holding You. I think that guitar solo is absolutely brilliant. And what I call the little sparkly guitar stuff that he did over the pre-choruses is given it an entirely different life. And he absolutely added magic into that track. And I love it. It's one of my favorite songs. I have like 6 favorite songs on the album, but he was actually a pleasure to work with. We got along really well. And I hope I get a chance to work with him again.
We had Stone Gossard from Pearl Jam on the show, and he just lost his mind over Jane's Addiction. I thought it was quite interesting. He's just like, they just did things that no one else was doing, and it was quite distinct and stuff. And I thought that was interesting. Yeah. Do you feel
that Nothing Shocking album?
Yeah.
Really did separate them from everything else that was going on at the time.
Totally. Okay, your musical Mount Rushmore. If we were going to cut Four Faces into stone, Sean's musical Mount Rushmore, who would they be?
Dave Gahan.
Yeah.
Don't laugh, but probably Paul Stanley. I just told you not to laugh.
I know. I didn't listen.
I think he's a great songwriter. I think he's a great melody writer. I would probably put Lane Staley up there. However, I mean, to me, without Jerry, that band doesn't do what that band does. So that's a tough one. But one of the, I'll just do a half of Jerry, half Jerry.
Yeah.
Lane Staley face. We'll carve this weird thing.
That'd be fun. Like, I really do want these to get made. Like, that's one of my dreams. This is the 42nd episode. I want like it to be like some weird theme park that you come and visit. I feel like Dolly Parton would invest in it. I've said this a lot of times. It might sound nuts, but I just feel like she'd be on board.
So I guess maybe Anthony Kiedis, maybe Robert Smith from The Cure, maybe Tom Chapman from Keane.
Yeah. What about Chili Peppers? What's your relationship with that? As
I don't know them personally, but I absolutely love them. They are a huge influence on songwriting for me, especially Chad Smith. Chad is a great example of a non-technical drummer that I think absolutely shreds. I think a lot of the stuff that's missing in rock today is groove, and Chad is a great example of how to throw down groove. He literally, every single song, no matter how simple it is, he's going to give you a groove that makes you it gets you bouncing, you know, and I think a lot of drummers miss the point nowadays. They're so busy masturbating on their drum set. They're doing so much crap that nobody can even lock into what the hell's going on, you know?
Yeah, totally. You're
And
not a
I
black
think
metal
that,
guy.
no, I can't stand it. Honestly, I can't. And
Yeah,
I understand
actually, what do you hate? What music do you just have the strongest reaction to that
death
isn't?
metal. I can't stand death metal.
Yeah.
It bores the shit out of me. It's so boring.
Well, working with a vocalist like Chester, I can understand why you'd just be like, this is just not a thing.
Fucking boring. And not to say that they're not talented musicians, but I think they're shitty songwriters. That's just how I feel about it. But so Chad Smith was a huge influence drum wise for me, and the Chili Peppers. I love how Anthony Kiedis, you know, can kind of go down in that minor key, and they're just great songwriters. I think they're another way underrated band, even though they're a huge band. I think their relevance to the overall rock world of the last 30 years is understated.
Yeah, totally. Who are the 3 most underrated drummers in your opinion?
Oh man,
I'm just throwing lists at you, man. I'll bring it back, but
well,
that is the theme of the show. Yeah,
it's certainly not Danny Carey. I think he gets all the accolades he deserves. He's a phenomenal drummer.
But Danny Carey worship is omnipresent, though. Danny Carey worship.
Well, and by the way, very well deserved. The guy has earned that respect. Not only does he just play incredibly technical, he does it in a way that's melodic, and that's tough to do.
Truth.
So I think we just talked about it. Chad Smith is one for sure.
Yeah.
You know, you go, oh, he's not a great drummer. Okay, well, I think he is a great drummer and the reason being, his parts make you remember songs, and they get you dancing and moving to songs. It moves the body. That to me is a drummer's job, is to give you the attitude of the music that's coming through, and he does that very well. I think Sean Kinney's another one from Alice in Chains. I don't think people give him the props. True. He doesn't play technically super difficult things, but he does these very flavorful little things, his little cymbal work, his hi-hat work. Those were huge influences on me. My little parts, there's a groove oriented of the song, and then there's a flavor side of the song that you can do with drums and little cymbal work and very classy, touchy little parts of the drum kit. He does very, very well. Lastly, let me think, who's the third underrated drummer?
Yeah. That's your thinking music. No, that's a good list. Like we don't have to limit ourselves to numbers. Okay, with the Phoenix, what are the songs that cut the deepest for you?
Okay, so like I told you before, I have like 6 favorite songs on this album. If I want to hear Chester scream, it's going to be Saturation. I think the best rock song on the album, as far as just kicks your ass from start to finish, just Starting to Fly. Yeah. I think Be Your Man has one of the best chorus.
It's a love song.
Holding You, it is a love song.
Love song. You got a love song on there. Yeah.
I think Believe Me is a really strong song with Richard Patrick singing the chorus. I love that song. And I think Drag is another one with a great chorus. And then I think Hole is probably our heaviest song. And just because we had the girls sing on that song, it always makes me, when I hear that.
Yeah. That's a pretty what was that recording session like?
It was pure magic. We brought them in and we had them write out all their dad's lyrics on some paper, and we spent the whole day with them. And SJ and I took the first line of the song and we kind of made it into this nursery rhyme, and we had the girls sing the nursery rhyme, and we swirled it around and had fun with it. And then they sang a chorus on with their dad, and they just had a great time, and they had such a good time. They came back a couple times over the next couple of days, and it was, how do you give somebody who's passed away anything? And I think by trying to connect him with his kids through a recorded song, that's something we are able to give back to him. And by the way, to them, when they're 18, 19, they're going to really appreciate that moment. But initially, there's something we can do for Chester. We can give back and let him connect with his kids through music. And I think that was a really, really cool way to do it.
Totally. Okay, a final question. Especially at this moment where you're honoring him and stuff, what do you think that Chester Bennington did for the musical world that no one else did, that no one else was capable of?
Well, I think so two parts of Chester as a musician. One was that he made people feel okay with not being okay. He made them feel like they weren't alone in whatever emotional uh, stuff they were going through as a listener. I had so many people reach out to me after his passing, and I can only imagine what the Linkin Park guys get. It's, 1,000 times what we get. But people who never knew him felt like they knew him very, very well because of that connection they had musically. And secondarily, he was one of the most compassionate people I've ever met. He would stick around for hours to sign autographs for people. And me not being as compassionate of a guy, I'd be like, dude, we gotta go. We got stuff that we gotta do. And he'd be like, no, man, these people came to see me. I want to make sure that everybody gets, we would do these autograph signing sessions at Club Tattoo. And we would bring in the guys from Linkin Park or Dead by Sunrise or Sublime or whatever. And, they'd have like 2.5 hours slotted. And there'd be like 5,000 kids in this line. There's no way they're all going to get an autograph. Well, the time's up, most of the bands leave, but he'd stay. He would stay and he would sign all of the autographs that came through. And he did that at concerts. He did that in public. We'd be out to dinner. People would come up and interrupt him in the middle of his dinner. And he was always just very kind. He never thought of it as a burden. He always thought of it as not a duty, but something that these people needed.
Well, I doubt any of them ever forgot it.
I would imagine not. I mean, when I've met my idols, it's something that sticks with me. I would imagine that when they meet theirs.
Oh, okay. Actually, last question. Who were your idols and what was it like meeting them?
Actually, I'm going to give you the third drummer that's underrated. Me.
Go on. Yeah.
Me.
Yeah, actually, good call, bro. Like, what the?
That's a joke.
Come on.
Okay, I'm joking.
Anyway.
So go ahead. What was your question?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, you're meeting your idols. Who were your idols? And what was it like to meet them? And did they live up to it?
No, your idols will never live up to what you think they are. My idols growing up was Gene Simmons from Kiss and Paul Stanley. Met them. They were nice, but they're indifferent. I don't have tits, so
not interested.
Gene was not interested in talking to me, which I understand. It's he meets 5 million dudes wanting to bother him, so I get it. So I think you have unrealistic expectations as a fan as to what your idol is going to interact with you. That's just reality. My other idol in real life, I would have to say, would be Tony Robbins. Met him a few times. In Fiji and read all of his books and really connect with him on a pretty deep intellectual level. He's my adult idol, somebody that I want to aspire to try to be a little bit more like.
How did being a businessman change your perspective on being a musician?
Oh man, what a great question. I would say they both affected each part of it. I understood as a musician and as a songwriter, the creative part of making sure that whatever I was doing in business, that I didn't lose that creative outlet. So being in the tattoo world, I still had to, you don't think of, learning accounting and spreadsheets and business plans and marketing models and things like that in the tattoo world. It just doesn't, people don't wrap their mind around it that way. But I had to learn that, but I still kept my finger on the creative pulse. The other thing is, I had to, so my business acumen as I became a more successful entrepreneur, there were things that I could apply to the business world. So Chester's a good example. He was my business partner. I was one of the very few people in his world that were cutting him checks and making him money. So that always felt good. And we had a couple of what I'll say tongue-in-cheek little arguments when we would send him checks, for his portion of he'd say, send it to my business manager, send it to I go, no, I want you to put your eyes on the check that we're sending you so that you can see that your companies are making money. And you know that you're part of that, not your business manager. It's not his fucking business. You and I are doing this. Me and Thor are doing this, and we're contributing. And so that was important to me is to make sure that the people that I did business with. Sorry, I'm giving a long way around this.
I like a long answer.
Making sure that I enjoyed working with the people that I did business with, because I was in some bands early on that, we had some people who were very toxic and doesn't make for good bed partners, so to speak. So in business, I took that into the business world. I was like, you know what, if I'm not enjoying the people I'm around, it's better to leave on a handshake and a hug and still maintain a decent relationship where you don't hate these people, but you can still interact with them, but you don't necessarily have to be in business with them. So, and always try to give back. That's something else is, part of music that's fun is watching people's reactions and watching people connect with the music and enjoy themselves. Same thing in business. When you feel like you're contributing back to the community, you feel a lot better about yourself and a lot better about what you're doing.
It's great to build something from the ground from nothing, whatever that is.
Fantastic.
Like ideas, making an ideas real. And you've just done something that is I think is going to be quite well received by the world. This is just coming out. I think all signs point to it being embraced, and that's beautiful.
Thank you very much. What's your favorite song on the record?
I don't know. I like, I do like the love song, not to be lame.
Be Your Man?
I do kind of, it's really lame. It's not the most.
No, it's not lame. That's Tom Wally, the head of music at Concord and Loma Vista, that's his favorite song.
Yeah, I'm a record company executive. That's where I'm at. I think.
By the way, he's got quite a strong track record of being right.
Yeah, sick. It's the single. I'm a monster. Yeah, what do you do? But I like them all. I think to be honest, I find it hard to pick favorite songs. I like listening to records end to end. Call me old fashioned. Oh, nice. I like just lying down and doing that, especially before an interview, like sitting down, because then you get the best sense of it. That's in this short. I am a long form person, as you can tell. I'm not as short. I don't exist in this world of 5-second things. Like I believe in the long haul and the longer get deep and stuff, like the Rogan school of interviewing. But not to say everything he's done is great, but there's the long form world
Joe Rogan
thing. Yeah, well, man, he he redefined long form interviewing, and made it even to a bunch of people dudes out there who they wouldn't maybe think have the kind of patience to sit down like his audience, taught them things about science. I'm not saying he's gotten everything right at all, but he's taught an audience that wouldn't necessarily be looking into some stuff.
Yeah, and I don't know that it's even, even if you asked him, I don't think he'd say it's about being right. I think it's about opening the discussion and having the discussion is the important part. It's not muting people's voices. It's letting people speak, whether you like what they have to say or not. It's giving that such a beautiful thing is the freedom to say what you want.
Yes.
Not hateful or hurtful things, but at the same time, debating ideas and having the discussion is really what's going to make you grow intellectually anyways.
And the culture, like the silencing is just ridiculous. Like we have to be able to have intelligent discussions, about things, even unintelligent discussions about things, and actually just hear other points of view, because everyone's coming from somewhere and everyone's distorting and projecting and manipulating their own lens through their own experience, and we should try and get as many perspectives from the world as possible. Because
I agree.
Anyway, I feel like that's a good place to end. And thank you for joining us, Sean. This was a Revolver Fan First podcast. Thank you for watching or listening. May your day be most triumphant.